book dressmaker or tailor to have your clothes made or mended. And yeah, excited to be here and see what questions come up this evening. Thanks again for the invitation.
Jen, do you want to go?
Oh, so I jump in. Yeah, I'm Jen. I'm one of the co-founders of LOANHOOD. I work with Jade. We're building a fashion rental app. So it's a people-to-people fashion rental app, circulating your wardrobes. And I'll hand over to Connor.
Awesome, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I've been working in sustainability teams in various companies for brands over the last 10 years and then decided to go independent last year. So now I help brands mostly on their circularity strategies, which can include creating new collections, new business models, and run various events. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for dropping this around and allowing me to rent this week. If I have a chance, I'll share a little bit about it, but I know we're really tight on time.
I know, I feel like you need to do a 12, but I just wanted to point out that Connor's actually, he's renting a jacket from Community Couture that we're doing with LOANHOOD at the moment. And it's all handmade, made of 37 different stories. It took 600 hours to make by Aniela, who runs Community Couture. So if anybody does want to kind of add to the story of this jacket, please do let us know, send us an email or even put it in the chat box and we'll get back to you. But yes, let's carry on. Let's go into it. Connor, actually, because you are the king of circular economy, do you want to kind of explain actually what the circular economy is, specifically what circular fashion is?
Yeah, perfect. Never been given that title, a strange one, but cheers. So really for me, it's all about we're consuming way too much stuff and have done for many years. So we really need to think about how we consume in a very, very different way. So all the materials that already exist, already produced into something, how do we keep those in circulation much, much longer? And when we're finished with them, how do we give them to another person to use for a very long time? And only after a very, very long time, we think about how we can repair them, alter them with the seam, or maybe after that, it's about how do we recycle them into something new, ideally the same thing, so like a second generation. So that's what the circular economy is, just making the stuff we already have go round and round, and we stop, extracting oil, we stop growing really environmentally intense cotton and other things. But it's important it's done with really clean things. We don't want horrible chemicals going around. So it's all about doing clean circulation. So that's a snapshot.
So what would you say to all of you, actually, what are the most simple ways for you to keep fashion circular? Like your kind of top 2 tips, really, from each of you.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. Oh, sorry, Jen, carry on. I can go after.
I was about to say I'd start with Layla in the seam and just make sure that the clothes that you have fit you really well and that you love them. And there's, I'm talking about your business, but options for repair and all the rest of it. But I actually think in some ways that's number 1, I think. So my vote's with Layla.
Go ahead. I mean, I've been talking about my business all day, so take the mic. No, I mean,
I've heard you speak about it and say, you just love your pieces. If they don't fit you, you won't love them. Like, yes, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, this is our core messaging, right? It's like we can shout from the rooftops till the sun comes up, like, buy sustainably, shop responsibly, but actually, it's in our human nature that until it's easier and more we're more incentivized to do that, we're just not going to do it. Forced change doesn't happen. And so, yeah, ultimately the angle of the seam is have your clothes customized, have them altered and tailored to fit you perfectly. And naturally then you will want to not only keep them for longer, but also care for them much better. The story of the seam is founded because I grew up with my grandmother, who is a dressmaker and has been for 65 years. And ever since a young child, I've had everything that I own pretty much tailored to fit me perfectly. And with that comes this real kind of visceral need to protect those items of clothing, right? If I tore, I don't know, a pair of linen trousers that I'd had made for me by my grandmother, I would stop at nothing to make sure that they were repaired and I could could carry on wearing them for like the following, you know, foreseeable, I don't know, next 10 years. Whereas, yeah, if you have a garment of clothing from fast fashion brand, you have no story, no attachment to it, then there's no need, there's no want to really care for it. So my kind of, yeah, my answer to this question is really like, put yourself in a position whereby you have that inherent, that kind of natural want to care for stuff. Yeah, over to maybe somebody else to give their perspective.
Do you have anything to add?
Sorry, yeah, I mean, I'd say, as I said, I'd start with the theme and having these sort of perfect pieces, but then it's sort of how there's exploring the options of how to share and move on the pieces that we have. So the ones that we all know, it's the resale, it's Depop and or clothes swaps. We run clothes swaps. We have one coming up in Hackney. You'll hear more about that later. And then of course, what we're doing with LOANHOOD, that's rental, and that, I think that's interesting because it sits somewhere between the two, the kind of having your pieces that you love and you keep forever, and you look after them and you mend them and so on, but without letting go of them. You still share them, other people get to wear them, which means each garment is worn more, and therefore its individual water, energy, chemical footprint is reduced because there's a kind of collective use. But you don't actually let go of it. You know, a nice perk, you get to make some money on it in the way you do with resale, but you're still holding on. So I think this is something that's happening for us now, is that there's not a linear, we don't want linear, do we? So there's not a linear system of I buy something new and then I wear it until I'm fed up with it, or it doesn't fit me, or it's degraded, and then I'll pass it on to someone else, either through charity channels, supposed recycling, or resale. I think, you know, what rental's doing is sort of busting that open. So the pieces that you have and you love kind of move on, but they come back to you. There's a boomerang thing going on. So I think that's going to be interesting in the coming years, just to see how that develops.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, I mean, this jacket is like pretty close to what circular means for fashion. Every tiny little piece, if you can see that, is made from factory waste. I'll hold it up there so you can see it. So that's like cutting waste from a factory. So that's one, it's already a waste material. It's not being a new cotton that's grown. It's not a new polyester. So that was a waste that probably could have gone to landfill, something like this. So that's already amazing. The whole material was laid out on one big square, and it was created through a zero waste pattern. So that's amazing. So normally when you think of a t-shirt on a lay table, there's going to be waste. So there's zero there. It's been designed with purpose. It's got a good design in it, in that it's got stories in it. So I already value in it. I'm already interested on who designed it and what are the stories of these pictures. But that is awesome. And I love the fact that it's within your business model where other people can rent it. So it's not like this selfish thing in Chelsea where somebody owns it and it lives in their closet and they wear it once and never again and it gathers dust. Like, that's a terrible story. Like, this is something that can be shared and part of a community. And, you know, I've just shown it to my partner and my sister, and they're like, their heads are exploding. Like, wow, that is what good design is. And people aren't exposed to that enough. So having in a business model like this is fantastic. Now, is that circular? Well, it's a great story. It's good design. Many people are utilizing the same product. So when this really ultimately gets to the end, now it goes back to the designer every time. So it can always be repaired. So it lasts a really long time. It might last 100 years then. But because it's natural materials, they can be recycled into new ones. So that's fantastic. It's not blend or anything like that. So for me, going fully closed loop in the fashion industry today is really difficult. We can make stuff last longer and longer and get better utilization. But to really close the loop, we're still a long way to go. Fiber to fiber recycling is really important in that. But yeah, we're on a journey and there's so much progress at the moment. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the jacket as well, you're kind of adding to that story. And what Aniela is thinking about doing actually is creating another jacket. And I know that's new, but she's using the stories gained from those that are wearing that specific jacket to create something else. And that is, it's like kind of that story is never ending. Do you know what I mean? It's constantly thriving, it's constantly growing. Connor, you beautifully put a summary of the circular economy together, and you've touched upon a few of the kind of pain points. But not to be negative about the circular economy, because it's a positive thing, but what are the kind of sticking points for people? You've mentioned a bit about mindset and stuff, but
Yeah, no worries. See if you can maybe hear me over that one. Karen, if you can hear us and go on mute, that would be awesome. Cheers. So what are the sticking points? So today, most of us will probably have an Instagram account, and that bombards us with new stuff all the time. We get the sponsored ads. We go on holiday and we have this social pressure to buy a new outfit. You know, there's all this stuff. Society tells us we need newness. And it's only recently that people are starting to switch, that newness can come from vintage. And you know, it's not a tiny little thrift store that's in a basement of Soho and smells. It's now like premium, exclusive. It's finding the needle in the haystack that nobody on the Saturday night is also going to have the same thing. So I think the more we can do that, and obviously great news, well, I think it's great anyway that re-commerce is scaling. It's getting serious VC money. I think that is normalizing it. And I think that's been a blocker in the past. I think in terms of mending and repairing, I don't know, I was living in Edinburgh the last few months, and I was actually amazed by how many repair shops there were. I hadn't been aware of that before, and I don't know if Edinburgh is special in some way, but I hope that really starts to kick off. And it's not repair shops, it's people joining the scene and sort of saying, yeah, I've got skills, I've got spare time, and people connecting to people in the community to love their stuff and make it fit longer. So I say that's still probably a bit of a hurdle. There's a friction point there. But yeah, if people can turn off the Instagram feed and really just be comfortable with the stuff they already own, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I guess if you're aware of these things, they become more visible almost, you know what I mean? You notice these things a lot more. And that leads on to the question for you, Layla, about community actually, and about how, you know, how do you bring people into your community? How useful is that community in kind of getting the message out there about circularity?
Mm-hmm. I think building a community within circularity is so important, predominantly anyway, is so important because many of the challenges that we're facing them for the first time. So let's take a traditional business as an example and look at some of the more kind of traditional challenges that one would face, whether that's customer acquisition or, I don't know, hiring a team. This has been done so many times that there are so many resources out there for people to learn from, and from people to take experience, and from people to almost like hack that that role that they're doing, or that hack that kind of space in which they're in. Whereas when it comes to circularity focused stuff, and to give another example, I don't know, like a business having an increased responsibility to provide their customers or their shoppers with an end of life return scheme. It's like, this is the first time that this has ever been a thing. And so if businesses are looking at this and trying to learn and trying to figure out a solution as an individual, it's going to take so long to get anywhere significant. And so the importance for me really lies in this, like, sharing information, sharing knowledge that will allow us as an industry to move forward at the rate in which not only do we need to, I mean, let's be honest, we need to be moving 100 times faster than we are, if not 1,000 times faster than we are. But doing it together, for me, is the only way in which we stand any chance, any hope of making those kind of significant steps forward. In terms of community with the seam, again, it's something pretty similar. Like we have now 750 makers across London, and 75% of them have come from word of mouth signups. So this is trained dressmakers and tailors and makers who sign up, earn money through the seam, and then recommend us to their friends or their colleagues or people who they've studied with. And it's like that collaborative effort, that kind of, that willingness to collaborate rather than looking at fashion in what has always been like traditionally this really dog eat dog, super competitive industry. Actually, that willingness to collaborate is something so refreshing. And I believe that we're only getting there now. Like, this is new. This is a new approach to the industry. So yeah, it's super important. It's happening both on a creative and a maker level and also on a business level. I'm not talking about the kind of big retail, kind of the H&Ms here. I'm talking about the independent, sustainable, the small fashion businesses and designers. But yeah, it's needed. We need to share this information with one another. None of us are kind of competing in the sense that there's nothing more important than getting to where we need to be on like an ethical level, and like in terms of our company's mission to like create a greater good and help people to become more circular, right? And that ultimately is the most important thing. So as long as we all kind of acknowledge that, then let's continue working collaboratively as we have. Yeah, I don't know, does someone else have thoughts on this?
Jen, you must have a thought on this, you know.
I think that's really exciting. So I think it's this sort of really interesting coming together of technology, which could seem impersonal and so on, and real people and small scale businesses and independent creatives and makers. You know, that sort of there's been, I think there is a real desire for people to be able to buy from independent makers, or so I've got on a collar that's been made by actually the sister of a girl I went to school with, and it's made from upcycled like military jackets, and it's very easy to put on for a Zoom call, which is great. And I felt so like chuffed to be buying something from an independent maker, and then to realize that it was my friend's little sister from school. But before, without Instagram and those similar channels, and really easy things like Shopify and all the things that make it very easy for people to sell products and so on, there's a big barrier. So even as customers, you only had the high street, you only had the really big companies. So I think it's just like we've reached this interesting point where, you know, maybe the internet was supposed to democratize knowledge, democratize things, and I feel like that's coming to fashion. So, you know, just to reinforce really what Layla was saying there, it's like, you know, it's amazing to think how many makers are already sort of signed up, and you can see that they're loving it because of the word of mouth aspect. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see, isn't it? When you think like, it's felt like there's just a few big companies that really controlled the high street, which has really dictated what all of us are wearing. And then in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, that's just going to be blown wide open, because, you know, access to the seam, access to each other's wardrobes through LOANHOOD. One of the things that really sort of surprised us, maybe we just didn't think about it so much when we first started LOANHOOD, was through lockdown there's lots of fashion professionals who were at home on furlough and started making their own pieces, one-off pieces, upcycle pieces, and the amount of time and love it takes to make those pieces it's quite difficult for them to price them at a point where they can reach the audience they want, you know, kind of 20 something, or, you know, someone in their late teens or something. But rental sort of flips that on its head, because they can, you know, make these one-off pieces, upcycled pieces, rent them out, get them back, just as Connor described. When they come back, they can repair them, change them again, take them apart, put them and make whole new outfits. So from a really sort of frugal amount of fabric, they can build brands, they can have a creative outlet. It might just be that the money they make is just enough to pay for the pleasure of making clothes, or it may be the beginning of something quite beautiful that turns into a business. And all of this is, yeah, this maybe the good side of social media and the good side of technology.
Right. Guys, I'm just going to divert from my questions because I'm aware of time and I do want to answer some others. So maybe if we've got time, we can go back to mine because there's some interesting questions that are coming up. Ray, Jen, she's asking what's the brand called for the collar. So maybe you can.
This is the co-edit, yeah.
And there's a question.
I think, Ray, I think you'll like all that. They sell like a vintage collection and a few pieces as well. And I actually think you'll really like their stuff.
And there's one from like a concern from Lucy, and she said she's worried that we're all speaking to an echo chamber. How can we make this bigger to reach more people? One of my questions actually was about kind of communication and how important that is, but I think also action obviously is, we've spoken a lot about these topics, and I think, you know, I think we all agree it's time for action. But does anybody, maybe Connor, you know, communication?
Yeah, sure. I mean, social media, even LinkedIn, basically puts us all into a group. Like, we see the feed we want to. So there's definitely a massive part of that. But when you've got 43 million users on Depop and something like, it's over 70 million, I think it might even be 90 million users on Vinted, like, that's not a niche corner, that's massive. And something like 90% of them are like 16 to 25. So this is, you know, it's the next generation. So it's not going anywhere. This is how they consume. You know, Depop's not perfect. It still sells new products and things like that. And some, yeah, maybe the quality isn't always the greatest, but that mindset is growing up with a generation and they're not going anywhere. And so for me, yes, we can think it's niche. We can think we speak in our own circles, but people don't want to wear the same Adidas t-shirt at the same party or the same All Saints t-shirt, whatever it might be. I don't mean to pick brands, but like, people want that individual thing. They want the thing that's 10 years old. They want the Ralph Lauren t-shirt that's faded in the sun, like that sort of stuff. And maybe that's not for everyone, but what you do also see is the big brands are making big commitments to have, you know, responsibly sourced whatever fiber. And because they've made those public commitments, wow, the NGOs are hot on them to show like action and traceability of what they're doing. And when they're not doing it, they're getting pretty, yeah, heated battles. So I think the brands have to make commitments. They need to be vocal around what action they're taking every single year, and they're being held accountable. So even if the consumer doesn't want it, if you're a publicly listed company, you have to be doing these things as well. So yeah, you know, you've got the Fashion Pact, you've got certain EPR taxes coming in. So it's kind of like, you've just got to do it. And we've lost a lot of high street retailers over the last few months. And arguably some of them didn't make any action or externally very, very little action around sustainability and what they were doing for the planet or the people in their supply chain. Now, it's not everyone that was asking questions at the till of who made this, but when they can't show anything, when they're asked by the media about that, it's pretty concerning. Everyone, you know, does have a conscience. They are a little bit concerned about who's paid what. So when people can't answer those questions on the BBC, it's pretty shameful. So I think it's either a government that's going to make it change or consumers are demanding it. Yeah.
Need to be held accountable, right? Okay, so there's James, I'm going to come to your question after Ray's. I will come to it, but Ray, you said, how can we show that rent or repurposed clothing, recycled clothing is accessible for everyone? Jen?
Yeah, I think if you're familiar with a lot of the rental companies that are already in the market, you'll probably be aware that they've got quite a high price point. They've gone in at the kind of what I would call cult brands and over, and you know, designer end, and that's fine, that's great. It's always, you know, you need the Teslas, the really expensive cars to drive desirability so that people want them at an affordable price point too. Certainly, LOANHOOD, it's always been our intention to cater for people like us. And I don't know, what's the phrase, something about like recovering fast fashion addicts or something. I mean, in my 20s, of course, I shopped the high street. Of course, I came home with tons of stuff, and now it's still like hanging around. But it was always our intention to make rental like accessible and a viable alternative to shopping in fast fashion brands. So to that end, not only can you rent single items, but you can style a look together. So kind of like put together like pair of trousers and like a top with a bag, and then upload that all together as a look and rent that out. And that's a kind of a way to piece together maybe like a cool brand with some high street pieces into a single rental that makes it viable. So one of the reasons those kind of rental companies have gone in at a higher end is there's some economics to it, and there's the price point at which, you know, if you're renting for 20% of the retail price, it's not worth the transaction if it's too low. You know, if you bought a £12 top from the high street and you're renting it out for like £4, it's kind of, it's a bit difficult to make it work, to pay for the lights and to keep the lights on, etc. So yeah, LOANHOOD's angle on that is to have this create a look, and yeah, so it's I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see people's style, not just like a single item looking a bit sad on a white background, but people like styling their pieces together and showing us how they would wear them, and then seeing them on other people and see how they style them and see if they have a completely different take on it. That's going to be cool. Just like the jacket that Connor's wearing, right? By the time everyone's seen it, I want to see who wears it with a dress.
I want the matching shorts. Come on.
Oh, wow.
How many hours will this take?
Maybe less than the jacket, so maybe 400 hours. Okay, we'll try and fit in one more question. So from James Foss, which actually I'll try and put two together. So James Foss said, what kind of digital tools might help reselling and rental models for fashion? I don't know if anyone can answer. I was going to ask if you've seen anything innovative come out of the circular economy. So yeah, whichever one you want to answer there, yeah, go for it. But yeah, we are running slightly out of time. Lucy's telling me.
I think we're probably all slightly aware of the digital fashion, like what's on the horizon, and that's going to be eventually digital try-ons, being able to get accurate measurements of your body, so that you sort of know if things are going to fit better, all the way through to digital clothes that never exist. And it's essentially a bit like a development of an Instagram filter that might put a hat on your head and makeup on your face. Like eventually we'll have that as whole outfit. So there's the tools that will help you get a better fit, and then there's the kind of the other side of it where it's like, well, if you only want it for Instagram, it never needs to exist. So it can just be digital.
Yes, I love digital fashion, even though it is a bit of a niche topic, but another discussion for another time. But is there any other like innovative things that are going on that are really exciting you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the element of I'm forgetting the name of it just now, but yeah, lots of apps are now basically you just use your phone. It'll give you all your measurements, whether it be for a pair of glasses or whatever it might be. They're 3D printed, 100% bespoke for you. And therefore you're way more likely to wear them for many, many years because it fits you, right? If it doesn't fit you, you're not going to wear it, like we said at the start. So I think that bit's cool. Like even more basic than that is just like apps like TrueFit, which basically tells you if you're a medium at Adidas, like you should buy a small at Nike. Like, so that reduces returns, which is, you know, returns use environmental costs. And then you see other things like RFID integrated into the thread of products. You see circular ID by Eon. So that really helps take the transparency of how it was made, who made it, what materials. It enables the rental because you know how many times it's gone in and out potentially. And then really at the end, you know, if it needs to be repaired, you know what kind of fibers in there, what kind of elastane's in there. Because if you suddenly use, you know, a non-biodegradable elastane and the rest of it's biodegradable, maybe you're messing it up. And then really at the end, when you want to recycle it into something else, you know, it's still really manual process. So if that can be done through infrared or whatever else, so it can be automated, that will make the recycling of clothing much more cost effective. So there's huge opportunities there as well. But it needs to be cooked in right at the start. If it comes in too late, it's, again, you're just adding on labor and cost.
Yeah, I think we saw a few last year, when, of course not last year, before lockdown, we partnered with Adventure Uncovered and put on an exhibition called Rethink It. So it was all about sort of innovations in materials, mostly for like outdoor gear, like wetsuits and swimwear and cycle helmets. There's a company called Hex, and they came along with like iPads basically and did 3D scans of our heads. And they kind of, then they can show you the model of the cycle helmet, and you can kind of, you know, print, and like they 3D print them, and it's made from castor bean based plastics and also bioplastics. So some really cool stuff as ever coming out of like the adventure gear and outdoor wear. And like, is it Ulex? That's the plant-based alternative to Lycra, or maybe that's not quite the right name, I forget. But there's, yeah, we had swimwear with bio-based elastanes and things like that. So I think always keep an eye on what sports and adventure companies are doing, because they expect their products to last, to be hard wearing, and they you know, they want to have really innovative technology, and I think they're the ones that are going to develop stuff that fashion will then take on once it's already there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like new materials coming out that have been like grown, and
Yeah.
like silk made from milk. There's a lot of like really amazing things that are happening. We might have time for one more question, actually. If there's any more questions from the audience, silk from milk, please let us know. But I know that we've spoken a lot about, you know, obviously the larger fast fashion from brands, and obviously H&M, they've brought in rental models and they're looking at these new materials. How much impact do you think this is going to have on the consumer? Because I think that these are the companies that are going to kind of spread the word to bigger audiences, aren't they? So do you think what they're doing, everyone asks this, is enough? Will it make an impact? What's your thoughts? A very quick one, very quick answer.
I think, again, forgive me if this is not 100% correct, but my understanding is H&M is the second largest buyer of organic cotton, and that's significant. And also my understanding is it takes about 3 years for a farmer to be able to certify their cotton as being organic. So I don't think it's insignificant for all the kind of ills and the, you know, they're not changing their business model, etc. That kind of investment in, for example, organic farming is something that maybe only a business of that size can do, and that will have a knock-on, ripple-on effect. I think that's my penny on it. I'm sure there's you could talk about it forever, couldn't you?
Can you add to that? Okay, Layla, would you like to quickly add? Or
yeah, I think the conversation somebody asked earlier, let me just have a quick look. I think it was Lucy who was talking about, you know, the success of Misguided. And again, I have to throw in, I don't want to say that it's like a skeptical perspective, but part of me believes for sure that until we make another option easier for these people, this audience who are buying Misguided, until we provide them with an easier and better option, both in short-term and long-term gratification, that actually it's impossible to change these behaviors. And so, yeah, I think it's about accepting this, understanding this, showing true empathy to the people who are making Misguided the business that it is, and really trying to understand from their perspective, okay, what is it about it that makes it so attractive, and then answering to those questions and answering to those concerns. Okay, you're buying something new from Misguided every week because you want to be part of the trend and you want to wear something new to go out. So then how can we answer to those needs? Yeah, okay, rental is definitely an option for that. How can we then make it accessible and affordable, so that you can also, you know, so that's also available to you? So yeah, I think again, it's a very it's a bit of a Marmite view in this industry, but for me, I'm willing to work with these organizations. The team is willing to work with these organizations, so much as to say that if somebody buys something from H&M, yeah, we'll customize it, we'll make it so that they'll keep it for longer, because I'm not going to ignore the fact that people are still going to buy from H&M. I just realized on the time, so I'm going to pass it back over. Yeah.
A statement to finish on, so I'll leave it there. If you want to get in touch with anyone, Connor, you have a clubhouse session on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. If you want to get in touch with the team, there's Layla, contact her website. Also LOANHOOD, we're launching our rental app this summer, so please sign up for that. And we're also doing a clothes swap on the 31st of July with Hackney Council. So sign up for your ticket on Eventbrite there, and we do a lot of these through the year. And if I've missed anything, girls and guys, please let me know. But thank you for joining us, and thank you to our panelists for an amazing chat.
Thank you, everyone, in case I get kicked off.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for hosting. Lovely to see everybody's faces again. It's been a while. We should meet up now that you're in London.
In real life soon.
Yeah.
Definitely.
100%. Okay, well, enjoy your evening, guys.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.